As Keith said, my name's Gordon, or Gord, whichever. If you have questions throughout, feel free to just raise your hand. I'm going to talk for about 10 or 15 minutes, and we'll just open it for questions. I kind of want to just ask a couple questions to begin with. First of all, when you think of acting or actors, what do you think of? Or who do you think of? Who do you think are actors? Name me some actors. Shout out, come on. How many of you went to a movie the last? Yeah.
I think of Christian Bale in the Batman series.
Yeah, Christian Bale, okay. Yeah, anybody else? Who else? Come on, you all know actors. You see them, you read about them. Most of those actors are actually Hollywood actors, okay? That is one very small niche of acting as a career. And I think the best way of being successful as an actor is to diversify and do a lot of different things. My, I guess, specialty would be musical theater. How many of you have been to a musical? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Have you done them in high school? Yeah? A few of you? Yeah? Even our cameraman. And I got into musical theater because my family was involved for 3 generations. My grandma sang oratorio and opera, toured all over the world. My dad, the same thing. He used to tour around in a cowboy quartet, toured all over the world. I just, as a kind of an accident, happened to be born in the States. So I'm a dual citizen, so I can work down there. Went to school down there as well. But I didn't go into acting originally. I started out at the age of 8 in my very first musical, and I've been doing it ever since. But I pursued music. I went to college at Queen's University in music, then did my master's in the States, and was sort of along the symphonic route. I took piano from the age of 6 right through 16 or 17, and then took piano lessons. That used to be a thing. I don't think it is now. It used to be that kids of a certain age, part of their education, they took piano lessons. There was no question. Whether you were involved in the arts or not, that was a thing that you did. Just like a lot of kids get involved in sports. I did both. So you do that sort of thing. I then went to Hollywood to get acting training. I realized that music wasn't quite enough for me. So I decided that I would get serious about my acting, and so I went to Hollywood and went to school there at a private school, which happened to be part of the California college system, so it was accredited. So I could actually get out student loans to take acting classes. That was not too much fun, but ended up taking a long time to pay those back. But I did realize that I didn't want to live in Los Angeles. After a while, it gets a little ugly. If you get bronchitis twice from the pollution, you know that's not a good place to live. So I thought about, okay, where do I want to live? And I had some friends in Vancouver. I went to visit them, and I liked it and stayed. So that should tell you acting is a fairly portable career. However, there are centers of acting around the world. If you're lucky enough to be able to go to England, London. If you're lucky enough to go to India, you're going to get involved in Bollywood. Los Angeles, New York. These are all centers for acting. In Canada, for theater, I suppose, Ontario, Toronto. For film, there's Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary. Winnipeg is growing, but it's not a huge center for film yet. And that changes. In the 20 years I've lived in Vancouver, we've seen the television thing go up and down. We've seen film go up and down. We've seen theater tank. Some of you may have heard recently that one of our major theaters, about the size of MTC in Vancouver, went bankrupt. it's gone. So half the acting jobs in theater in Vancouver are gone. That was the Vancouver Playhouse. That happens. The unfortunate realities of the economy hits the arts very, very hard. I'm not trying to be a downer, but I do want to make sure that you are armed, if you really are serious about becoming an actor, that you know what you're getting into. In Canada, 13%, that's only 13, of all actors actually work. The average I shouldn't say wage, the average yearly income of an actor in Canada is $15,000. That's it. You make more at McDonald's or as a barista. So why do actors do it? It's obviously not for the money. I went for career advice, like you're coming here, when I was in high school. I happened to be in Toronto, and my dad hooked me up with a very well-known Toronto actor, and he said, the only reason you should become an actor is if you cannot do without acting, which means you have to have a passion for it. You have to be driven to do it. You have to love it. You have to love as many aspects about it as possible, because it's going to be tough. Acting is not for sissies, okay? And it can be a fairly cruel business. But there are rewards. There's always the hope that you'll be one of that half percentile that actually make it in Hollywood or Broadway or whatever. You have about the same possibilities of doing that as you do of making it to the NHL. You know, sports is just as tough in a different way. It's very tough physically and age-wise. With acting, there's also inequalities between men and women. Give you an example. The director, I happen to be here in Winnipeg doing a show at Prairie Theatre Exchange. Our director, Max Reimer, is directing the musical Chicago in Calgary right now. Some of you may know that show. It was made into a movie recently, a few years ago. It requires really, really good dancers, really hot dancers, you know. And there's where the inequalities come in. There are a lot more women in acting and dance. I saw a few of the guys' heads pop up at that moment. And that's another reason why you get involved in acting. Then there are men. That just happens to be the way it works. That means the competition for women is much higher. So when Max is casting Chicago, all these absolutely stunning women come in, dancers who can do incredible things. And with Chicago, it's a specific type of dance. And they also have to sing. They also have to be able to act really well, all three. And these girls come in, and there's one after another. They all can. So his job is tough, casting the women. Then he calls in the male dancers. And basically, if you can breathe, you get cast as a guy. And that's just not fair to the girls, because they work their buns off trying to prepare themselves. That is not quite the case once you get into outside of the musical theater world. You get into acting for film, television, that sort of thing. Actors versus actresses, the competition is just as high. I mean, when I go for a commercial audition, I see this room would be full. That's how many people that are seen at an initial audition. You think about what do you need to be an actor? Well, you need, I was told this when I was your age, very thick skins to get the job and very thin skins to actually do the job. And that is tough. You can either be really good at the business side, you know, have a strong sense of self. Don't mean necessarily a big ego, although sometimes that helps, to overcome a lot of people saying, well, I'll give you an example. When I was studying in Los Angeles, towards the end of the 3 or 4 years, I started going out on auditions. I went for a Pepsi commercial. And I went, and this is typical, it's called a cattle call. And what you do is I arrived at the place where the auditions were. I was given a number, not even my name, just a number. And they lined us up. And the lineup for auditions was around the block. We came into a big room, much bigger than this. We were all lined up along the wall. And the casting director, actually it wasn't even the casting, it was the assistant casting director and the assistant of the assistant, were walking along with clipboards. And the assistant would go along the wall and say, too tall, too fat, too short, too skinny, too, too ethnic, too, boom, boom, boom. Maybe they'd write down that name or the number. Those numbers would get called back. They'd do it again. Same thing. And until they winnowed it down to the people they wanted in the commercial. Brutal. I was too short. They wanted tall people in that Pepsi commercial. At one point, I went to an audition. I arrive, and the casting director looks at me and says, "You're not fat. We want fat people." So young, kind of cocky actor, I said, "Oh, I can act fat." And then I went out to the car and put on all of my, every spare bit of clothing I had and came back. I made her laugh, but I didn't get the commercial. I did get remembered, however. Next time I went into that particular casting agent, I could tell that she was remembered, oh, yeah, this is a guy who can act fat. So sometimes when you go for an audition, it's not about actually getting that part. It's for just simply to be remembered so that next time they see you, oh, yeah, he was funny. Yeah. They sometimes ask, what are the qualities of a good actor? I think a sense of humor is really important. Otherwise, you can't get through it as a career. So how do people become successful in acting? Well, I mentioned diversity. I went the musical route in education. But while I was doing that, I was still acting, and I was still taking acting courses. You need to also be able to dance if you're going to be doing music theater, or at least be athletic to the point where you can kind of fake it. Because you never know. If you're on a film, they might say, okay, we're doing a dance session. We're at a high school dance. So you're going to have to dance. And if you're like, oh, well, I don't dance, you're probably not going to get hired. But if you're comfortable enough physically as an athlete or something like that, that you can at least move, great. Same thing with voice, with singing. I used to teach singing for the actor, for film people. And film people are scared of a lot of things such as, out of their comfort zone, such as singing. And so my job was to get them comfortable enough so that if they were asked in a scene to sing or whistle or make any kind of music, that they had something in their back pocket, no matter how silly, whether it's happy birthday or something like that, that they could do, that at least if the director said, can you sing anything, they could say yes. Didn't necessarily sing well, but at least be able to sing. So, acting, singing, dancing. In the musical theater world, again, because of economy, things are changing. It used to be that if you got into a musical, you had a nice big fat orchestra, 25 players. I've played in quite a few. I've conducted many of them. And you'd have a big cast of thousands on stage, right? A nice, maybe Professionally, probably 25. If you're in a community group, maybe 40 or 45 people on stage. And that's with the big old musicals, you know, the classics. The musicals that you'll see now, there was one that just came through called Ride the Cyclone. I think there were 10 people in it. Not even that, 8. With a rock soundtrack. So no musicians and very few actors. Our production with Gunmetal Blues, the only music is me on a piano and 2 other actors. I mean, it's built for more of a cabaret or a very intimate setting. So Prairie Theater Exchange is perfect for that size, for this particular production. The shows that you see coming out aren't big, huge productions. Now, MTC will do a big show. Opera still uses full orchestra, but if you've been to the opera recently, you pay a lot of money for your tickets because they have to pay all these actors, all these singers, all these musicians. What is happening now is that if you are an actor and you play an instrument, that's the next move. Triple threats isn't enough. You have to be a quadruple threat. You have to play an instrument as well if you're going to do musicals these days. At least that, and unfortunately, that sort of hurts the music end of things because very few actors are really good instrumentalists, at least according to the Musicians Union. Let's see. Day in the life. There's a lot of variety in what I do because I do a lot of different things. I also teach, I also coach audition skills, singing in musicals, and I also teach and coach acting. I have 1 student, so I'm not getting rich off of that, but every once in a while, at least I have something else to fall back on. And that's important. If you're going to be a musician or an actor or both, you have to have other skills, whether it's bartending or waiting. That's why so many actors are waiters, is because it's a very portable skill. You have to be inventive with your business and with your career or careers, because the days of working for one company for your whole career are gone. I hope you understand that. This is yes, this is no, this is maybe, okay? Those days that my grandparents, you know, even my dad, but, you know, worked for several different companies. My grandparents, they worked for a single company their whole life. But those days are done. I don't know what the average is for working in one industry even are in Canada. But people move around a lot more today than they ever have. And your generation is at the small end of that wonderful thing called the baby boom. So you got a whole bunch of old people above you who are hogging jobs. Now in acting, there will always be the need for young, new faces. So that is not a problem in acting. But in other careers, you got to be aware of that. So if you're in another career, you have to be really inventive. You have to really come up with niche marketing. You have to come up with ideas of, okay, well, realize there's all these people who are older than me, who are staying in their jobs longer, so what am I going to do? Well, you got to figure out a way to get around that, to serve that, and be inventive about it. That's sort of a little got off of acting there, but with acting, it seems that there is a bit of a ceiling on acting, a little bit like sports. If you're lucky enough to have a sports career that lasts till you're 30, that's a long athletic career. That's also a fairly long career for an actor, or at least for actresses. I can honestly say, just quickly looking at all the ladies in this room, And it's no thing against any of you, but none of you have a Hollywood physique, which means skinny as a rail. You've all seen pictures in the tabloids of, oh, too skinny, too skinny. Well, the reason that the actresses get that way is because of the pressures of Hollywood and film. Film and television actually add pounds. If they take a picture of you, it flattens out your features, so you look fat. So then you start, losing weight, so that on camera you will look normal, but in real life you're dangerously thin. And those are some of the pressures that go towards acting in film and TV. Different in theater. I actually have had a fairly good career in theater. I don't get on film very often. I do commercials. I've been pretty lucky that way. And I'm not skinny as a rail by any means. This is when you're supposed to disagree. Okay. Boy, tough room. Do you guys have any questions so far? As I'm being kind of down. I wanted to tell you, the realities of acting, but there are some joys. First of all, the people who are involved in, especially theater, are great people. They are there because they want to be. They are involved in acting because they love it, and they are involved in the theater because they love it. And that means not just the people on stage, but the people backstage. How many of you, several of you said that there are shows that you do, musicals or plays at your high schools. Can I see those hands again? Okay. Have all of you acted on stage? Yeah, let's see some. How many of you been backstage? How many of you done set construction, sound, props, costumes, any of those? Good, because those are all areas that you can go into as careers. Where do you do that? Where do you learn more about that? Well, the big festivals, Stratford, Shaw. I think actually at one point Rotary used to have a scholarship for traveling. I know they have a lot of travel scholarships and sponsorships. But I had a friend who actually went to Stratford to study, I believe it was costuming, on a Rotary scholarship. And so, it's a good thing that Rotary's doing this so you guys can find out about stuff like that. And that's just in costuming. If you have an interest in high school, my biggest advice to you right now is have a look at your life right now. See what your wins are. Where have you won? Where have you accomplished things? What do you like? Make a list of those things. What are you really good at? Because I think all of us are good at something. That's why I went into music and acting. I was good at it. I wasn't as good in athletics, so I didn't go into that. I'm horrendous at math. I did not go into that or business. Now, I've learned a certain amount as I've gone along about the business of entertainment, but that's one of the reasons I went into music originally, was because I was good at it. It was a win for me. So whatever your wins are, pursue those. And most likely, if you can get creative about how you make that happen, you can talk to people who are in that industry. If you're whatever that thing that you are good at is. And it may be simply that you like to read, or you like to watch TV. Maybe TV production is something you want to go into, or whatever. Electronics, I mean, there's so many different things that people can be good at. There's nothing more frustrating than doing something that you're not good at and knowing it. And yet, that's why I didn't become a high school teacher. I did supply teaching and was horrible. Horrible at it. So I didn't go into that. I'm much better on a one-to-one or a coaching kind of thing. So that's about the only real advice I can give to you guys. Find where your wins are, follow those. And if they're acting, good. Because that's, I think, why I do it. Yeah, the applause is nice. Yeah, the laughs, making people laugh, making them cry, that's great. But I think knowing that I did a good job, whether anybody else recognizes that, me knowing it is the most important thing. And I think that applies to any job and any career. If you know you did a good job. Now, being patted on the back by your boss or by your fellow whatever, your coworkers, that's great too. So those are, I think there's a question on this thing that here about what are the characteristics of a successful actor. I think I mentioned sense of humor. Well, another one is plays well with others. Okay, you learn that in kindergarten. So those are kind of the couple of things. You have any questions at this point? I can get specific as to if any of you are really, really interested in this. I've got headshots and resumes here. You can see what a resume looks like for an actor, what headshots are about agents. I can talk about that if you like. Anybody have any questions? I'm kind of sitting there. I see a few yawns, so I figured I'd toss it to you guys. Yeah. Oh, I must have covered everything. I know I haven't. Nothing. Wow. What brought you into this room? It wasn't my shiny face. You guys must have been curious about something. Why do other actors do it? Yeah? Did you have a question? No? When they know it's not for the money? Because they love it. They were exposed to it somehow. This is a question that we talk about a lot. And some do it because it feeds their egos, the applause aspect. I do it because of a sense of accomplishment. Doesn't always happen, by the way. There's also, how many of you are musicians? Do you play an instrument? Yeah? There's a really neat thing that happens on stage as a musician and or as an actor. And it's kind of a spooky, kind of mystical thing. As a musician, you've practiced the notes. You know the notes, you know your instrument, you know the part. You're playing with another group of musicians. And there's a point, if you're lucky, where they've all done the same thing. They've practiced with you. And hopefully it happens in performance so that other people can hear it. And many of you have been there when this has happened. And it all clicks. All the people on stage playing instruments, they all seem to mesh. And it may be just for an instant. And everybody in the audience, without realizing it, do realize it. They realize something has happened. They're not quite sure what it is. In acting, the same thing happens, where you've learned your lines, you've learned your blocking, you've learned your movement, whatever it is, and you're working with other people, and then all of a sudden, something exciting happens. And it may be something unexpected, it may be a mistake, which everybody just sort of rises to the occasion to overcome. But whether the live theater audience sees it, okay? And they realizes it, and something happens, and they realize, okay? That is another reason why actors and musicians do it, is for those fleeting moments of, I don't know, catharsis, whatever you want to call it, where everything just meshes and something bigger than themselves is created. Now, I don't know have any of you actually written or created anything, whether it be art or music? Have you ever written a short story that wasn't an assignment? Yeah? Yeah. That's another reason why actors do it, is the act of creation. Now, most actors are interpreters rather than creators. You know the difference? Authors and playwrights and composers are creators. Actors take that and then interpret it. Unless you're an improvist, then you get into the act of creation. So, but there's, as an actor, as a musician, and I've written 5 musicals myself with my writing partners, and I've written music, I've written plays and stuff like that, so I understand the act of creation. It's like giving birth. None of you guys know anything about that yet, hopefully. I'm just talking along here. I'm hoping that some of you will have some questions. Mm-hmm. You could be one today. I could give you 15 minutes and you could be an actor. You wouldn't necessarily be a good actor. It takes a lifetime. It is a profession like doctors, lawyers, anything like that where you have to constantly upgrade your skills. If I'm not actually doing a play, or sometimes even when I am doing a play, there are certain things I have to do to continue acting. I have to stay in shape physically. I have to, so I work out. I have to work on certain skills that I may not be good at. In my case, it's memory, so I try and memorize things while I'm doing other shows. Or I'm, taking singing lessons, taking dance lessons. And I've been in the career for 47 years. You know? So it never stops upgrading your skills. You can be an actor at any age. You can start acting at any age. I wouldn't go out cold into the professional world because there are certain things you need. You need headshots. You need, if you're wanting to pursue it professionally, you need an agent. You need, well, some experience. How do you get the experience? Well, you get involved in community shows, high school shows, and whatever else is in your area. If there isn't any, start some. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Were you asking about voiceover type thing, or? Yeah. Voiceover, radio stuff. There's a lot of different areas there. If you go to a larger center, you can take workshops in voiceover, and that is another area that actors, I've done voiceover. You tend to do, as an actor, you do a lot of different things. And so with me, with music and coaching, but you also, you try dance, you try anything you can, voiceover, commercials. I don't know if there are any, if you're interested in finding out about film, the best way to do is to go on set as a background performer, as an extra, and just see how it works. And you have to be careful about this, but you can, if you are careful and respectful of a person's time and efforts, you can talk to directors and those types of things, approach them, but on a film set, the time is such a key element that you really wouldn't get a chance to really talk to the director necessarily. But you get to talk to other actors on the sets. You find out what the protocols are, how things work in the film industry or TV industry. I'm not sure, for instance, in Winnipeg, I'm not sure what the voiceover possibilities are here. There are a lot of different types of voiceover. Do you understand what voiceover is? It's basically recorded voice for, the guys who do the announcements in commercials, who do the narrating on film. And also, well, it's mostly to do with commercials, but there's also documentaries and things like this. So there's a whole career. And actually, voiceover in radio, you can actually make quite a bit of money, especially if you have a range of voices that you can do, or if you become known for any one particular voice that people want. One thing you have to realize as an actor, you cannot get unemployment insurance. There's no health plans. There's no retirement. Well, you can start your own RRSP, but unless you go through the unions, there's not a lot of that sort of thing. So there's not, like in other industries where you get all these things, some of the unions actually will help do that and organize it for you. Thanks for coming. Any other questions? We covered voiceover a little bit. Mm-hmm. Boy.
It's a tough crowd to get questions.
It is tough to get questions out of you guys. I
They all
know.
look like they could be actors.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Sorry, we have one question.
got a
Just,
question.
yeah, sorry, a little louder. How do you get over stage fright? That's a really great question. My wife is a musician, and she has crippling stage fright. And she's an executive in a bank, so she has to do speeches, And she's comfortable doing that, but getting up in front of people and playing is tough. There's several things. Preparation. Knowing what you're supposed to do forwards, backwards, so you can be confident about that aspect. Being able to control as much of whatever you're going to do as possible. So if, for instance, you're in a play, I use that as an example, but it can be anything, you know your lines really well. You know you're blocking where you're supposed to be on stage. Now, if one of the other actors messes up, if you know not just your lines but their lines as well, you can anticipate and help them out. And if the other actors, this is another thing, if they know the play really, really well, if you mess up, you get whatever, they can help you. So knowing that somebody's got your back is a big part of that. Another thing is, and this applies more to auditions, but to know where you're doing it. So that the normal stresses of, okay, how long does it take me to get from my home to the theater? If I get into a snowstorm and I'm run behind time, and get, all the tension that adds to the possibilities of stage fright. Doing it in small steps, and recognizing when you get a win. A win for someone who is crippled by stage fright could simply be standing up in front of a group of people, not saying a word, just being there. The next time, and not giving up, and keep going, right? So the next one would be standing up in front of a group of people and saying something small. That would be a win, without collapsing. And to understand where stage fright comes from. That comes from primeval days with somebody, you came up against a grizzly bear, you would either fight or run. And what happens is that acting is it's a false situation. You're putting yourself in a position where you would normally either fight or run, right? Fight or flight. And yet, you're in front of a group of people, and it's a matter of, they're not going to attack you, hopefully. And to realize, oh yeah, this is what I'm feeling, the chemical, the things that are making me do this, that's false. The information that's being fed to me is false, and understanding that and being able to, there's a whole series of things, and a lot of it is psychological, but a lot of it has to do simply with trying it and doing it, and you may feel it, and it may make you feel sick in the stomach, may make you throw up, but to overcome that, that's a win, right? If you really want to overcome it. And like I would say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So take little steps, so that if you take a huge step and try and become the star of the play on your first time out, and then you fail, or you get the thing and you choke and things go wrong, that would be a loss. But if you start off carrying a spear and you're on stage in front of all your classmates, that's a win, right? Then the next time you're carrying something else, and maybe you have a line. Then the next time you got a few more words. And you become more comfortable in that space and with that play or a different play, and you work your way up. That's how I would do it. That's how my parents did it with me. I had a speech impediment, and I was very, very nervous talking in front of people. So what did they do? They had me, when I would come home, we'd have a meal, and all the kids had to get up and say what they did at school, whether I had a lisp or not. And then it got to the point where I was also playing piano by that time, and so I would get up and I would have to introduce the piece that I was playing, and then I'd play it. And I'm sure they got really sick of hearing the same piece over and over and over, but that's how I, as a little kid at age 6, overcame my stage fright. It wasn't really stage fright, it was more just being uncomfortable with the way that I spoke, because I spoke with a lisp as a little kid. And gradually doing it more and more, and working on pronunciation as an actor, amongst other actors, sort of got me used to it. Any other questions? For professional things, generally go through an agent. If you try and find an agent first. The question was basically, how do you go about finding out about auditions for various things? And they are posted. Now, for community things, often they will be posted in your community library, or you can simply get in touch with the particular unit or the theaters. When are your auditions? You go directly to the theater. That's for community shows, that type of thing. And that's a great way to get involved and do acting, whether it be musicals, plays, whatever. For the professional things, the professional organizations, the unions, will post at your local union office often. There will be listings of television shows or plays that are coming out. If you're taking classes I know Prairie Theatre Exchange offers classes, I think MTC does as well, for acting. They will keep you informed as to when they are having their open auditions, which are a general audition, or specific auditions for a play and specific parts. Those are two different kinds of auditions. So for community things, you go to the community specifically. And you can go do that with the professional stage as well, and just phone them up, ask them when their general auditions are. Especially if you're new in a community, you want to find out what things are up to, that's how you do it.